What is going on, everybody? A2 Angler back with another video, and today I'm super excited because I'm going to be taking out my fully rigged Native TitanX 12.5. I've put everything I own on it pretty much, and so today we're going to take it out. Shout out to Laura, by the way, at Riverside Kayak Connection. They're the ones who basically got me in this rig. Thanks to Christopher Cantwell for making that connection to Laura. But if you need this rig, you reach out to Riverside Kayak Connection because they are probably the most professional people I've worked with in a long time. They help me load it, they help me unpack it, they help explain all the different nuances of it, let alone they help me find the right kayak for me. So I've done a bunch of research on this kayak, a bunch of research on different big kayaks and trying to find the right one for me. So today we're gonna take it out, we're gonna test it out at the test lake, and man, I'm so excited. I haven't been to this lake in a couple years, and it's always been good to me. So hopefully it goes well, and hopefully we can get some good footage of how I've rigged this whole thing up, and I can give you my final thoughts on these initial impressions. So the first thing I want to point out is the stability of the kayak. It's a big kayak and it's rather heavier than most kayaks, but with that comes an incredible amount of stability, one that I really think is unmatched. I've been in a PA-14, I've been in an Outback, I've been in a few different platforms, been in a Pelican, and nothing compares to the stability of this kayak. This is one of the only kayaks, if I can hold the position, that you can balance with one foot on and you're not gonna flip, which I think is pretty sweet. So when it comes to stability and the reliability of that stability out on the water, pretty much unmatched. All right, let's get out there and let's get to it. It feels really good to be back. I've been injured for a little bit. I have a really bad back issue that flared up while I was doing report cards. If you don't know, I'm a teacher, and that can be a stressful time. Anytime I get stressed, the back goes out. The scary thing was that I bought this kayak and then threw out my back, and so I wasn't sure if, you know, the kayak's at that perfect angle that's gonna hurt my back, or if I had overworked my back with the swivel seat. So coming out today to test it, now that I'm healthy and not stressed, it's the summer, I wanna give this a fair review before I go and say, oh, I hurt myself because of the kayak, which I don't think is truly the case because I've tried this kayak several times before I bought it and didn't have any issues. So I just wanna put that out there. So this is a really nice lake. It doesn't get a lot of traffic. It can be very clear, though it looks a little bit muddy today, but I still have about 6 foot of visibility. I can still see the bottom. I've never come out here with LiveScope either, so I think I'm gonna take this video a couple different ways. I'm gonna take it as really the first time fishing happy in the kayak, happy and unstressed. And then we're also gonna take it from the standpoint of like making sure that we're really putting this thing through the paces. So this video might end up being a couple different videos at the same time, but what we're gonna do is, this is the first time I've taken LiveScope out here. We might start deep, because that's kind of the bite I enjoy. And then I'm gonna run this thing shallow. I brought the shallow anchor so that you can see how that works. Brought the shallow gear so that we can fish docks. So this video might get broken up into like a deep water LiveScope video and a shallow water fishing video. So stick with us, stay tuned. We'll see what the day brings us. Bluebird skies, which is always challenging. It means there's a lot of high pressure, high barometric pressure, which can make fish a little bit less inclined to move around and less inclined to eat. So we'll see what happens. First thing I'm gonna do is go out to this point. There's a little point and a flat out here that's been really good to me lately. There's a bunch of docks to the left here. I'm in about 18 to 20 feet right now. They're about 20 feet in front of me. We'll see what they are. They're crappie. You know, that happens a lot with LiveScope, to be honest with you. You end up catching a lot of fish that aren't the fish you're looking for. And most often, when you're seeing that big blob, they're either crappie, walleye, or catfish in my experience. Here's another one in front of me. This one's 35 feet in front of me. They're directly to my right. that way. There's bass here, they're just not biting what I'm throwing at them. So one thing I noticed about this kayak pretty much straight away, both in terms of stability, but also in design, is the seat. Now the seat swivels, obviously. Everyone's talking about that. But what I want to talk about is the height of the seat. The height of the seat makes it really comfortable when you're kind of pedaling around and trying to figure stuff out. But then when you have to go to stand, the movement is so fluid. It's almost like getting off the couch, like a good couch, because the height of the seat is not so low that you're kind of straining to get out of it. And then when you have to go sit, you're not plopping back down in the kayak. And one of the things I really appreciate is your ability to kind of remain stealthy in that sense. That how many times have I been in the outback or, you know, a different style of kayak, and you see people plopping down. They catch a fish, they go to measure it, and they're plopping back down, and they're making all that like kerplunk noise, and that's probably gonna scare away a smart fish. You know, if you're searching for intelligent fish, big fish, they've been caught before, most of them. And when you want to remain stealth, the ability to just be able to sit down and keep fishing and stay stealth, super important to me. So that's a big plus, is not only the swivel seat, but the height and design of the seat was well thought out. I am still getting used to switching hands when I'm steering, but I also want to try today. I've put a lot of thought into it, and as the boat gets out of line with where I'm going, I can just turn my body. I don't have to turn the boat anymore like I used to think I had to. That's kind of like maybe an old thought process from the old boat. So one of the accessories that I bought was the Yak Attack rod holder for the left-hand side here. I do cast with my right, then switch it to my left. I just find it easier to place the rod on my left side. So if that's something you're interested in doing, like I said in previous videos, there's so much track space on the kayak. Pretty much anywhere you would want a track mount to be, there is. So it gives you the ability to really accessorize this kayak. I mean, this kayak is built by anglers for anglers. You can tell. Just the way it's set up, you can tell that they really listen to anglers. So your ability to, well, that's a good looking fish there. That is a fish. That is a bass. Right in front of me, about 35 feet. So I'm seeing bass on bluegill, and they're pushing them downwards. Let's see if I can get over this guy. So he's pushing the bass. The bass is pushing the bluegill into the weeds. Let's see if I can get one here. What I'm trying to mimic is one of these fish breaking rank. I still don't quite know what these fish are, so I'm gonna hold on reservations. They're behaving like crappie, but there's a bunch there. Those have got to be crappie. Look how many there are. That's got to be crappie. A lot of crappie here. We'll go find some bass. So one thing I've noticed about the lake so far is it is full of bait. There is so much bait in the area. I'm almost concerned that a bass is full. There's just a buffet of food everywhere. I'm just not impressed right now. Haven't seen many that I think are bass on the graph. Coming over a grass field though. I might try Gilly's thing of just going in the middle of the lake, you know? So one of the newest techniques that I'm playing with right now is called flipping a tube. It's not a new technique, it's quite an old technique, but I keep trying to find the best setup for this, and I think I've found it in the Gamakatsu Superline 2/0 hook, because I used to use a 3/0 and it was just a little too big for the tubes that I'm using. If I start getting a bite on it, I'll show you what it looks like. So flipping a tube, it really likes to work in like 4 to 8 feet. That's what I like to do with it. But it has worked shallower, and I guess it could work deeper, but it's really just flipping a tube. You know, it's flipping. So you're kind of in here picking out isolated grass clumps or cover that you see. I'm not gonna go completely shallow yet. I do wanna stick in these flats for now. There's some flats with some weeds in it. I'm in 4 foot right now, but it's a 4 to 8 foot flat. Very clear water right now. So I'm using a green pumpkin tube. I'm just getting in between these reed piles here. See what we can find. If I go all the way around the sides and don't find anything, that's gonna be pretty telling in my opinion. Nice bright day like this, they're either under docks, pads, or in the middle of the lake. I think they might be deep. That's weird to go that long without a bite here. I'm gonna come up off this point here. I'm expecting to see them. What I'm gonna start doing is, I haven't found any shallow. I'm talking like 10 foot all the way to 4 foot. I went that whole route and didn't find a single fish. And so, you know, in a tournament, sometimes you just keep going and you hope to run into them. But they also might be, you know, we're seeing guys winning them on LiveScope out deep. So I'm gonna go try to find a wolf pack and fight my way through what I think are gonna be a ton of crappie, in my opinion. But if I can find a couple good fish using this technique out here, I'll be pretty happy. I think one of the big questions I had too was, you know, okay, stability is great, weight, I can get around, but how does that translate into kind of a steady wind and trying to stay on a spot when you don't have the motor on? So I'm gonna try to show you that a little bit as I go up into the wind. The only problem is these fish are not eating. Yeah, these are all crappie. That's a big one. So these fish out deep are either crappie, which is why they're not biting. It's a nice fish. So the crappie are here, lots of crappie, which still begs the question, where are all the bass at? But that's the thing with LiveScope is you'll spend a lot of time chasing fish that aren't bass if you let yourself. And so like part of learning it is learning what's a bass and what's not a bass. And something that helps is feeling all these bites. Like the more you know what a crappie bite feels like, the more you know you can just let it go. The crappie just peck at it. A bass is not gonna kiss it. A bass is gonna try to kill it and eat it. So like these fish in front of me now I know are crappie. And then every other group that looks like that is a crappie. So like I said, when you're coming out here with the LiveScope and trying to figure all that out, you can pretty much write off any grouped up fish. You can also get a good idea of size after a little bit and know that you're chasing crappie or smaller fish and you don't have to worry about it. And then anything that looks slightly bigger than that, like this guy here, that feels like a bass. Oh, and he let go, dude, so we'll never know. Ah, but that looked like and felt like and was a bass. Just proved myself right on that one. So yeah, my thing with LiveScope is, you know, you spend so much time fishing for the wrong species because you're not making the distinctions between bites, fish behavior on the screen and all that, you know? So what do I look for? I look for size of the blob. I look for grouping. I look for behavior when the lure does get down there. I keep in mind the type of bite, and then if I can catch one, it's so much more helpful because sometimes they are small bass. A small bass will look like a big crappie. That's a good fish. Oh my God. I pulled it out of his mouth again. Oh, man. Fuck. Crappie. Oh, I see the school now. I'm hesitant because, oh yeah. Finally a fish. Right out there at the edge, man. God, that took forever. Hopefully that tells me something, you know? So here's a fun one where you can just turn all the way around and make a new plan, I guess. I don't know what else I've got. I'm gonna drop shot something white. I'm just confused right now. They seem to be following it, but not hitting it. So when that happens, sometimes I'll switch to a drop shot. So I've gone around the whole lake. I've gone shallow. I've gone grass. I've gone flat. I've gone deep. I've thrown at a bunch of good looking fish here on the LiveScope, but none of them are eating. And you know, that's the other downside to LiveScope is like you can see every single fish, be it bluegill, bass, whatever, right? And you literally will watch them leave your bait alone. And that can be super frustrating in the beginning of it because you come out here and it finds fish for you and expect to catch them. But it's almost like, you know, you realize how many fish are down there and, you know, they don't want anything to do with you. You can probably see them on the graph. There's just thousands of bluegill. So trying to find what they're gonna eat. I am kind of excited then to run the docks. That's where I think this rig will actually prevail. Oh, there's a bass. Is he good? A decent one. That one came in 14 feet. Light bite, super light bite. I mean, really light bite. But maybe that's helping. I don't know. So I'm really loving how this thing handles in this wind. It's a sustained wind. And it's not really, I'm not really getting blown too far off track or anything like that. It can hold its own in the wind, which is good to know. All right, let's go run some docks. And I have my shallow anchor too to kind of help show you what that looks like too. I'm curious as to how well it holds in the ground. I'm also super curious about how the seat can help you fish docks. I'm gonna start wacky, and if I really start finding them on docks, I'll switch. Something you don't see me do a ton is dock fishing. Although it is something that you must have in your arsenal. You just have to have a dock fishing in your arsenal. Really important to learn to skip. If you don't know how to skip, I would really highly encourage you to start learning, because it can put your bait in places most people don't even dare if you get good at it. And there's different ways you want to fish a dock. You want to fish the big platform, maybe the walkway. Ooh, I got a good one. I gotta wait for him to come back. Oh, yep, he's wrapped around the pole. Broke off. You saw me power pull down there for a second, that worked. But man, he got me. Ooh. And that instant reverse really helps me get out of there. So this looks like a tight angle, but I know I can make that angle with this kayak. which is sweet. Got one. Yeah, that's a couple bites on a dock now. So not deep, not shallow, not in the weeds, not on the weed line, not on the break line. On docks. So we have 2 or 3 bites on a dock. So you're like, all right, we're out of position, but then you turn, get the cast under the dock. Hopefully catch one, right? Got one. There you go. There's another on the dock. And the 2-aught was perfect for it. This is like slowly becoming a how to break down a lake video almost. Just trying a bunch of different shit till it works. Chatterbait on a flat, interesting. You know, you catch one, I've been saying it all day, you catch one, slow down, see if you can get another one. If you can, you slowly start to put together a pattern. If not, keep moving. So, you know, that's how this kayak can really help you break down a lake, because I feel like I've done everything today, you know, to really try to figure it out. And some days you just can't. Some days they're just not eating. But in terms of breaking down a lake, you can go deep, you can go shallow, you can fish docks, you can anchor shallow, you can, you know, be in 20, 30 feet like I was catching them. So now I'm on a little 6 foot to 9 foot flat. I'm just running a chatterbait trying to get a reaction strike. Saw a bunch of bluegill beds, they were all empty. And if the bluegill beds are empty, my thought is they push out into the weeds for cover. And waiting for them will be fish that are ready to eat them. So it's kind of my thought process here. And that's where I go back to LiveScope. LiveScope can be very helpful, but if I would have stayed out there all day fishing for crappie, I'd have never found at least 4 or 5 bass that I've found today. And when you find 5 bass, you've got your bag if you're a tournament fisherman. So all that is just so important. You have to be able to put all the pieces together. And I think that's what I'm really learning after a year of LiveScope and a year of pretty hard competitive fishing, is you can really get stuck in a way with the LiveScope, and you should fish the LiveScope. Don't let the LiveScope fish you, if that makes sense. I could have been out there all day chasing crappie because I thought each one was a bass, or each bigger one was a bass, and you just wind up catching good sized crappie, and then by the time you're done with it or kind of get frustrated and change, your tournament's over. So that's where I'm saying, like, use the information you've got. Take in all your senses. Don't be afraid to pick your head up a little bit and just fish what you're looking at. That'll help you, man. You just don't forget that every little bit of that is information that you can use. If you're seeing a ton of bait and you're only catching crappie, that's information. Some people will just kind of stick with it and hope that changes. I'm telling you, very, 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 very rarely does that ever change. So go find something else. I pulled a couple off docks, ran a bunch of docks, but then there really weren't any on docks. And so now I found myself in the flats, and I've caught one, trying to find another. And you just break it down like that. And it's nice to have a rig that can help you do that, because now we're just kind of out in the open doing something different. That's 2 on a chatterbait. 2 on a chatterbait and 6 to 7 foot on a flat, okay? So if I remember correctly, that's 1 out deep, I think, a couple on the docks, but now I've got 2 in the span of 5 minutes in this 7-foot flat on a ChatterBait. So we're gonna kind of stick to this 7-foot line now, see what happens. Just slow retrieving the ChatterBait here, very, ooh. There was Topwater over there. Something struck the top of the surface. I got him. I got him. That's awesome. Oh, it's a good one. Oh, jeez. So that's 3 on a ChatterBait now in this flat. So, you know, let's put it together. That's where, man, if you're looking at a LiveScope thing, or you're just trying to LiveScope them, so it's gonna work against you. You have to be able to put together all the pieces. Be ready. You know, you always have to be ready to adapt and change. That's really the lesson I've learned with LiveScope. When the LiveScope bite is on, it is so much fun. I can't tell you how much fun it is to video game fish. But when it's not on, don't forget about everything you did to get to where you are, the fact that you felt you needed LiveScope. You fished for years before it. And you can forget some of that instinctual stuff. That's what I feel. That's the lesson I'm learning. Don't be afraid to fish those instincts. Don't be afraid to try to figure it out without it. Or take it out and don't be afraid to move away from it if you have to. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm using LiveScope right now. I'm using it to help me find these grass clumps, and I'm chucking around the ChatterBait, but I'm not staring at the LiveScope, you know? I'm not afraid to look away from it, look around, take in what my senses are showing me. And that is one of the big changes I've made with the LiveScope, is not letting it dictate my style of fishing. I forgot to mention too that in a tournament, I'm marking each fish catch with a hook. And so if I get through an area and it starts to die like it kind of is now, that I can always go back to the area where I was getting fish bites. And I mark that on my graph as a hook, and then I can clear them later. But it's always good to remember where that happened, because then you have an area to cast at before you even get back to where you were, if that makes sense. So like as you come in on it, you can cast at that area and kind of creep back into it. Beautiful day, turned out to be. And just as difficult as I thought it would be with these bluebird skies here. But hopefully I've been able to show you that even on tough days, you can break it down, figure it out, buy yourself a couple bites. It's interesting that looking at the graph here, the place I was the flattest part on that whole area. The drop is to my left now. But there was like a big nosy, looked like a nose type thing, you know what I mean, on the depth chart. So maybe they were in the flat this whole time. And again, every bite's telling you something. Even the deep bite, I didn't really feel very much. And even these reaction bites, they're not like ripping the rod out of your hand like I have felt chatterbait fish. It's just the weight. It almost feels like there's just weeds on it all of a sudden, and you turn and it starts to fight. So it's still a reluctant, I would say, bite today. It's been a while, but that's another one on the ChatterBait. We're gonna keep this ChatterBait going for the rest of the day, I think. So that's essentially how I break down a lake. I start with one thing and don't get much. I go to the next thing, then the next thing. But I'm trying different areas, different techniques, different parts of the water column, different types of bites, all just trying to bang, 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 put it all together. And like I said, you get one bite, all right, it might be an anomaly, you might have gotten lucky, but you get a couple off 1 or 2 techniques and you start to put a picture together of what it is they're looking for on the day. And I would have never thought that a chatterbait in 6 to 7 foot on these bluebird sky days would be the ticket today, but that's about 4, maybe 5 fish I've caught off of it. And that's what I'm gonna run. So say you're in a tournament context, you use that, or say you're fun fishing, that's how you're gonna get a couple more bites in a day. But you have to be able to take in everything that you're learning, every single cast, every single fish catch, and especially when you're not catching them. I mean, you're putting everything together to give yourself the best bet and the best picture of what's going on. Because even on a tough day, even on these bluebird skies, high barometric pressure, you know, typically a day where it does get difficult, you can still put a few things together and make some sense of it. So I hope you've enjoyed that process, and you know, hope you learned something through it. You know, that's really why I came out today, was one, to learn the kayak. You know, what can the kayak do? And it's been pretty cool to see how this kayak can help me break down a lake, because the kayak itself is so versatile. You know, not only am I fishing different types of stuff, different techniques, but I'm able to get in areas with this kayak, both deep and shallow, and position myself with the seat in ways that help me catch fish. And it's all felt really intuitive. It's all felt just like, you know, part of me as an angler while I'm out here. And that's a really cool experience, because you're not, you know, thinking about the kayak, or you almost forget about the kayak. And that way you can completely focus on the fish or the bite, or, you know, deciphering the lake. And I think that is one of the highest compliments I can give to a kayak. Whereas the Hobie Outback, for me personally, I felt like I was always trying to figure that out. The kayak and I never really felt like we joined together in that sense. I always felt like I was fighting that kayak. Got one. Oh, yeah. Not bad. I guess it is making sense to me that a reaction strike would work on a tough day. Really try to get them to react to it. Got to use something flashy, something with vibration, something with noise. And I'm using a green pumpkin to make sure it's completely natural looking. Still in 7 foot too. So that's good news for me. It makes me feel very validated in my assessment of the day. There's a good bite. Oh yeah. Oh, he got off. I knew he would the second he jumped weird like that. Today's been fun, to say the least. So far feeling pretty good still. So maybe the back injury I had was just stress. Good one. There we go. Well worth the fight. Small one. Not, yeah, I got a couple. Cool. It's kind of slow today. Thank you. We'll call it there. That was fun, man. Well, hopefully that gives you a really good idea of what the Native can do and some of the abilities that it has when you're fishing out here and using it. I'm in the 12.5 and I absolutely love it. I think it's a great kayak. It is a little slow. I'm not too sure how it'll do on like super windy days or big water with waves, but you know, we'll get to that when we get to that. So far, every time I've brought it out, it's felt great. I've felt happy and I have enjoyed fishing out of it a lot. So I'm very happy right now. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.